And campaigning in the swing state of Michigan, former President Trump vowing to bring back auto jobs while urging Americans to vote early. Comes as Trump is set to travel to Georgia tomorrow and North Carolina next week to address the impact of Hurricane Helene. And today's Iris Tao has more from Trump's rally earlier today in Saginaw, Michigan.
As early mail-in voting has now started in the key swing state of Michigan, former President Trump on Thursday held a rally in the bellwether county of Saginaw, urging voters to vote early.
You want to go out and get that ballot, return it as soon as possible.
Trump also touted his economic platform.
We're the best job numbers ever.
And praised his running mate's debate performance.
I drafted the best athlete.
It comes as Senator J.D. Vance says the Republican National Committee is working to ensure integrity in this year's election.
I believe that we are going to have the safest and most secure election in 2024 that we've had, because the RNC is fighting for election integrity in a way that it frankly wasn't 4 years ago.
And Trump doubling down on saying he won in 2020.
We won. We won. If I thought I lost, I wouldn't be doing this again. You know where I'd be right now? On the beaches of Monte Carlo, maybe, or someplace.
And this rally comes just a day after Special Counsel Jack Smith released new details in his case against Trump in the 2020 election interference case, saying that Trump, quote, resorted to crimes to stay in office. But Trump firing back by calling the new court filing election interference and, quote, old information that should not have been released prior to the election. And on Thursday, Trump announced that next week he will be traveling to North Carolina with dates to be determined to not disrupt local rescue efforts. He has been criticizing the administration's response to Hurricane Helene, and that is expected to be a point during his upcoming trip. Reporting from Saginaw, Michigan, Iris Tao, NTD News.
President Trump will be traveling to Georgia to get a briefing on the damage caused by Hurricane Helene. He's set to speak with reporters at 3:45 p.m. He will be joined by Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. This will be the first time the two men will have met following their differences on the election results back in 2020. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris is at a rally in Wisconsin tonight. We'll be going there to our reporter on the ground in just a little bit. Now, what does the judge's unsealing of Jack Smith's latest filing mean for former President Trump? We welcome Jacob Eisler, professor of election law and anti-corruption at Florida State University. Jacob Eisler, thank you for joining.
My pleasure.
Jacob, I want to start by getting your thoughts on Special Counsel Jack Smith's recent filing in Trump's election interference case. This one that the U.S. District Judge there in D.C., Tanya Chutkan, unsealed on Wednesday. Are there any new details in here that you think could be more damaging to Trump's defense?
I do think it's extraordinary how it's going into detail regarding the measures that Trump took to try to overturn or ensure victory based on which side you're on in the 2020 election. I don't think the core nature of the charges against him have changed. I think what you're seeing here is, in some sense, background maneuvering to determine if Trump's conduct is going to be seen as part of politics or as part of a criminal conspiracy. This isn't even the direct to the charge itself. This is merely determining if Trump's conduct should be held as part of his official conduct at all.
Speaking of his conduct, what would you say are the broader implications of treating a president's private actions as separate from their official duties? Could this set a precedent for holding future presidents accountable for personal, actions or misdeeds, if you will?
So the core legal concept here is presidential immunity. The idea is that when the president acts in his official capacity, he should be immunized from judicial consequences and judicial oversight. It should be the voters who make the determination if the president is governing well. This is a core constitutional concept. Trump's conduct is unique not merely because of the magnitude of his attempts to intervene in the 2020 election, but because it lies at the borderline between public and private conduct. Was he acting as a president who was trying to ensure that governance was occurring with integrity, or was he a private figure desperately trying to obtain some good for himself? And I think this will be the central question. Will it affect future presidents? Yes, though if you think about the context in which presidential immunity becomes central, usually the situations are pretty extreme. Much of the prior to Trump, much of the law surrounding presidential immunity could be traced back to Nixon. Typically, by the time presidents are under this sort of scrutiny, they're already in quite a deal of trouble. The thing that's remarkable about Trump is that he's neck and neck for being president again in 2024. And that's what makes this so extraordinary. Sure, there are legal implications, but I think it's the political implications and his status as potentially president again that make this so important.
Now, Special Prosecutor Jack Smith alleges that the former president disregarded warnings from his own advisors. How much of his comments about former Vice President Mike Pence are relevant to these charges? And how does this align, if you will, with Trump's First Amendment rights, perhaps?
I think the remarkable thing here, and the thing that makes this truly sticky, is while Smith is an independent counsel, this is occurring under a Democratic administration, right? So you have to raise the question of to what degree is a charge like this politicized, right? The sticky thing is, which you I think raise with the Trump Pence's relationship to the prosecution, is that you not only have a struggle between Republicans and Democrats here, you have a struggle within the Republican Party regarding the legitimacy and the culpability of Trump's actions in 2020 at all. I think the more Smith deviates from the straight and narrow of trying to establish charges sticking against Trump, which is classically what prosecutors do, the greater the risk that this becomes perceived as politicized. And the more he goes outside the narrow lane of seeking to establish that Trump violated clearly delineated laws, the more this starts to look political rather than legal.
Just briefly, turning our attention to New York Mayor Eric Adams' corruption case. His team has argued that the benefits Adams received were gratuities, quote unquote, rather than bribes. Is the law gray in this area, and how could that argument affect future public corruption cases?
So just a brief comment on Adams. This is in many ways a much more familiar type of corruption, right? A politician attempts to trade his public power for personal gain in terms of re-election, but also in terms of, I guess, flights to Istanbul. The Supreme Court has increasingly narrowed the scope of anti-corruption law. And this is what Eric Adams' hope lies. He'll attempt to show that the prosecutors cannot demonstrate that his acceptance of gifts, of private rewards, of campaign finance funds is closely linked to any sort of public action. And the Supreme Court is his ally here. There were two cases in the 2024 term, Fisher v. U.S. and Snyder v. U.S., that narrowed anti-corruption law. Of particular interest to Adams is going to be Snyder, which suggested that gratuities are going to be much harder to establish than bribes where there's a clear agreement. And this is ultimately going to fall to the Supreme Court, but also to what prosecutors can establish. And the question will be, how explicitly did Adams make an agreement to trade these private gifts for official action?
Jacob Eisler, really fascinating perspective. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much.
All 435 seats in the House of Representatives are up for re-election. But just a handful of races will determine whether Republicans keep their majority or Democrats take control. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Martinez, walks us through some of these critical congressional races.
With just over 30 days until the November 5th general elections, all eyes are on who will be the next president of the United States, former President Donald Trump or Vice President Kamala Harris. Either will need the help of lawmakers in order to push through their policy agenda. Let's look over at the balance of power as it stands in the House of Representatives. Here we have the 435 seats in the House of Representatives and the magic number. The magic number is 218. That is the number that either Republicans or Democrats must achieve to get to the majority. Now, if we look at the Democratic side, we can see that there is 171 the 171 districts that are solid Democrats. And then there's 13 of those districts that are considered likely to go to the Democratic side, to go blue. And there's 12 that are leaning blue for a total of 196. And that is the number where right now the balance of power stands for Democrats. They are short 22 seats to get to that 218 majority. Now, if we look at Republicans have 187 solid districts that will go red. come November 5th. There's another 20 that are likely to go Republican and 6 leaning that way for a total of 207. Republicans are only 11 seats away from that majority. They only need to win 11 seats to retain control of the House of Representatives. Now, the important races are these ones, the toss-up races. The toss-up elections could go Republican, could go Democrat. Right now, the polls have them in the margin of error. 13 of those 32 congressional races that are considered toss-ups are right now in the hands of Republicans. The rest are in the hands of Democrats. So what we have here is that Republicans have twice as much a chance of retaining control of the House as do Democrats. Now, the concentration of these toss-up races are in 3 states. We have New York, California, and Pennsylvania. If we go to the state of New York, we see these 4 Republicans that are the toss-up races in the state of New York, the Empire State. We start with Congressman Desposito. Congressman Desposito is right now facing possible ethic violations. He's also in a congressional district. If we look here, the 4th congressional district that has a 22% Hispanic population. So whether the incumbent will retain his spot or not will most likely also depend on how Hispanics in the 4th district of New York vote. Now, if we look at Congressman Mike Lawler, Congressman Mike Lawler is in the 17th district right here, has a very large Jewish population, and we know that Republicans have been drilling Democrats on their policy towards Gaza, towards Israel. So there Lawler will be hoping to score some points with the large Jewish population to retain his spot. Congressman Williams from the 22nd district right over here. We have Congressman Williams is ranked as the congressional race that is at most risk to be lost. So of all 4 races, Williams is actually being considered by some pollsters right now as a lean Democrat district. And Molinaro in the 19th district right here, he won his election in 2022 with 4,500 votes, so it's going to be a very close call. Important for the state of New York is that all 4 seats that we see right here in the toss-up elections are seats that in 2022 Republicans flipped, and that's how they got to get control of the House. Now let's go to the state of California. In the state of California, we have 5 toss-up races concentrated in that state, usually a state that the presidential electorate goes for the Democratic side with over 20 points in most election years. So we see in the map that those Republicans here in the 13th district, Duarte, Garcia in the 27th, and Steele in the 45th are going to be at risk. Republicans will have to find a good pitch for those Californian voters for them to keep them going to Capitol Hill come January 2025. And lastly, let's look at the state of Pennsylvania. There's only 3 congressional toss-up races in the state of Pennsylvania, but Pennsylvania is a very important battleground state. We know that for the campaign of Kamala Harris, she will most likely need Pennsylvania if she wants to get to those 270 electoral votes. And as we also know, during election years where the president is also on the ticket, there's a stronger connection down the ballot. So we do expect to see that how Pennsylvania goes. If it goes blue, these 3 races might go blue. And if Pennsylvania goes red for Republicans, all these 3 races might go red. We see that here Scott Perry from the House Freedom Caucus is trying to defend his seat. So that is how the balance of power stands in the House of Representatives. Again, really quickly, 435 seats. There's 32 toss-up elections. Republicans only have to win 11 of those 32 toss-ups to keep control, while Democrats have to win 22 of them. So we will see in November 5th who will keep control of the power of the purse. Back to you.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.